Welcome to the next part of my tutorial for the 2D platformer game in Unreal. We're going to have more trigger boxes for collectibles, and we're also going to store that information and then display it in our UI. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and make a new blueprint class, which will be for our collectible. So I'm going to call this just from the base actor, and we're going to call this coin. We're going to want to have a collision and a sprite. So I'm going to make my sprite, paper sprite here, which will be for our coin. And we'll also have the collider. It's a classic at this point, box collider. Let's make sure that we have it as a box collider. I wasn't sure if I'd done that properly. Okay, there we go. I've made a little I've made a little coin image here. So we're just going to go ahead and export this out and drag this image in, and we'll apply all the same settings as we have before. So this will be a coin asset. We will, of course, apply our 2D papers texture settings, as you should be used to by now. And then we're going to create a sprite from it. And here we go, there's our sprite. So now if we go back into our coin blueprint, we should be able to set the display render sprite of this paper sprite. We can change this to find our coin. There it is there. So now we've got our coin. We may want to either make the box smaller or make the coin bigger. I guess we can make this box smaller to fit the shape of the coin. Whenever we collide with the player, so we're going to want to do something. Let's cast to the paper character to make sure that we are actually colliding with the player here. And then we're going to destroy the coin. That makes sense to me because it's like it disappears when you pick it up. Destroy actor, and that will be actor self because it's destroying itself because it is the coin. Let's go ahead and save this and stick our coin in somewhere. Of course, now that we've got this coin to work in our level, I'm going to set this to 0 on the y-axis and move it over here. Is that a very small coin? It is very, very small. Let's go ahead and make that coin a little bigger before we duplicate it. So 7.5. Depending on how your level is scaled, you may be doing the same thing that I'm doing, which is multiplying all of the scales by 7.5 so it matches the right collider on the character. But maybe your character sprite is bigger and therefore you don't need to do this scaling, or you want to do slightly different scaling. Now that I've got my coin, I'm going to just duplicate it because we should only really need one coin script for all of these coins. So I'm just duplicating it and putting it about the level so that you have to go around collecting all these coins. So here we go, we enter. Now it seems like we are colliding with the object, but it's not allowing us to trigger the box every time. One of the things that we can do to make sure that we are always triggering this event overlap is go to our box and make sure that our box collision is set to overlap all. And then we can turn off the box collision on the sprite itself. So I'm going to do no collision on the sprite. Let's go ahead and run this and see if this solves our issue. I think it has. So we're collecting the coins, but our current score is not going up. It's not increasing. So we're sort of theoretically collecting these coins, but it's not actually doing anything except making the coins disappear. And then we collect this key, and then we can go through the green door. So we're going to want to store the value of our score somewhere so that we can call back to it. So I'm going to make a blueprint that's just going to be a basic one, and then we'll call this score manager. And the whole point of this blueprint is just that it will have a variable contained within it. So I'll make a new variable inside it, which will be our current score. And we will change this to be an integer. And so the entire point of this manager is simply to store this value, the current score. We'd better make it visible as well so we can access it from other places. And we'd also better just stick it in the scene. It doesn't really matter where it is so long as we have one version of it in the scene. Now if we go back to the coin blueprint, every time we pick up a coin, as well as making that coin disappear, we're going to want to do something else. So I'm going to drag this out here, and we're going to want to find all objects of a class Let me see if I can remember exactly what this is. Is it find something? Or perhaps it's get. Get actors. Let's see. Get actors of class. Get all actors of class. So we're going to try and find a score manager. So the class is going to be score manager. And this is going to return an array, which is going to be all of the classes that are of score manager in the level. But in this case, we should only have one, but we're still, because we get an array, even if it was an array of only one of them, we're still going to have to use our for each loop. It's just that this should only happen once because we should only have one manager in our scene. So what are we going to do with this manager? Well, we are going to change the score. So instead of dragging out from here with our context sensitive menu, we can drag it out from the array element. It knows that this is going to be a manager at this point, so we can try and find the score. And now we can use get current score or set it. So because we're triggering our coin and we're collecting it, we're going to increase the score. So we're going to set the current score. Make sure we trigger this in here so that actually happens. And then the current score is equal to what it currently is already, plus 1. So we're going to have to go ahead and do a plus symbol here so that we can add an int plus an int. So I'm going to do integer plus integer. And I find this just by pressing the plus symbol into my search bar. The integer that we're going to add is 1, so that's fine. And the integer we're going to add it to is the current score. So we're going to drag this out and get current score. Sorry, get current score. And we're going to use this to plug in as one value. So basically we're getting the current score, we're adding 1 to it, and then we're setting the current score to the new value, which will just be the value it was before, plus 1. Let's go ahead and compile this and run the game and see what happens. Well, nothing will happen actually at the moment because our current score is still not displaying that value, even if it is increasing. So let's change that first so that we can properly test it. I'm going to go find my widget for the HUD, which I believe is in this menu stuff folder. Here it is here, HUD widget. And I can go back to the designer view to find my current score. We're going to get a new text box, which will contain a number, which will just be the score. And we're going to set this to 0 to begin with. But this value is going to get overridden anyway by the updating value of the score. We better set its color though to contrast with that background. Now, next to the content for this text box, and let's rename this as well to make it clearer, we'll call this score display. Next to this, we can see that we can have a binding, which means that we can create a binding for it by right-clicking here. And now that we've got a binding, we can set the return value, which will be the value that's displayed in this box. We can calculate that by doing a similar thing to the coin, where we're going to find that coin manager. So we're going to, what was it? Get all actors of class, I think it was. Here we go. I'll get all actors of class. The actor that we're going to get is going to be the score manager. And once we've got that score manager, we are going to go ahead and grab that score. So we're going to get score. Let's see. Oh, of course, it's an array. We forgot we have to for each first. And now we've got an individual version of the actor rather than the array version. We can now get the score on that. Get current score. Of course, we've got to make sure that this actually happens before we get the return value here. And now that we've got our current score, even though this is an integer value, a number, and we need to return a string, which is a text value, we can just connect these up and it will automatically convert the integer into text. So now if we go ahead and compile, we should see that value now get updated every time we go into a coin. So there you can see our current score is now at 1, now at 2, and now at 3, and so on. So I think that we've done one of the things we have to do. We have got collectibles / parts. We've already said that we've done that. We haven't got a high score, but we have got a score. Let's see. We are going to have to add a timer. So to get our high score and our timer, we're going to do something similar to what we did with our current score. We're going to have a timer. So as the game progresses, the time is going to tick. The idea being that you have to collect all of the coins by the end of the time, or sorry, get the best time maybe. Yeah, we'll say get the best time. By the way, look at how this, I've copied these two elements of my widget, and this box is now covering over the score. The order that these are placed in the hierarchy of the scene determines which is drawn over the top of the other. So I'm moving them around so that now this timer text can be in front of the square. So we've got our timer now. Oh, not timer full stop. It should be timer. Oh no, that is a colon. You just can't quite see it there. I'll put a wee space in. I think that looks a little better. We better make it consistent with this one here. So for our timer, we're going to similarly have a text box, but this time we're going to bind it to something slightly different. We're just going to bind it to a score manager timer. So we're going to go ahead and add now a new variable to our manager. This time it will be a float because we can have a time that's incrementing in less than just like one number. And we'll call this our timer. We'll call it current timer. And as the game continues to play, so on event tick, we're just going to increase the current timer. So I'm going to drag this out and go for plus increment float. Not really increment because we want to add a specific value. So we're just going to do float plus float. We're going to turn off context sensitive. I don't know why it wouldn't let us find it without this turned off. There it is there. And we're going to take our delta seconds and we're going to increase it, increase a number. And the number we're going to increase is our timer. So let's go ahead and get our timer and drag this in here. So now we're adding these two together. Oh, it's because it was I was dragging out from here to try and get the plus, and that wasn't compatible because this is just a calculation. And now we're going to go ahead and drag out my current timer and do the set method. And then we can connect these up and we can connect the value that we calculated earlier into the set. So basically we're taking our current time, we're adding delta seconds, which is the time between one frame and the next, and then we're setting the current time to this new value, which basically results in the float value, the number in current time, increasing over time as it counts time as time increases. So we're going to make this visible as well, so it can be accessible from other places. We're going to compile this, and we're going to go back to my widget. And we're going to go ahead and grab this value here, and we're going to bind it to something new so that we can display the time that we're storing in our score manager. You kind of know the drill at this point. We're going to get all actors of class. The actor of class will be our score manager again. We will then do a for loop over the array, make sure that it actually happens. Boop. We will then take that array element and we will get the timer. I wonder, can we just convert our float into a straight text? Yep, it's fine with that as well. So then we just have to make sure the return node actually happens. So now if we go ahead and run the game, we can see our time is increasing over time as we keep track of it, and then it's getting displayed. So we need some sort of end game goal here so that we can have our high score and end the level with a win screen as well. So maybe what we'll do here is that you have to collect so many of these collectibles before the game ends, or rather that you collect all the collectibles. I think we'll do that. And then once you have collected all the collectibles, then the game will end, and the score you get will be the time that it took for you to do it all. I think that makes sense. So we've got, how many coins have we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We could put 10. That would be a nice round number. So we could put 3 more in here. So I'll just duplicate this. And the nice thing about working in blueprints is that when you're doing it right, you won't really have to re-implement code over and over again. Once you have a coin, for example, that works and is nicely modular, we can just duplicate that coin everywhere. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we'll just have one more here. So that means that we need to collect 10 coins, and then the game will end. The last one is behind the screen door over here. This is a very short level. Maybe you'll make yours longer, but this is just for demonstrating the functionality. So let's go ahead and first of all just change something in our display here. So if I go back to my designer in the HUD widget, we're just going to go ahead and add some text here after our display, and we'll increase this background so that we can see it. And we'll just do a nice little /10 to show the idea that, you know, this is how many of these out of 10 have you collected? Is it currently 0 out of 10 and so on? So that's like giving the player a sense of what it is they're trying to do here. And finally, we're also going to go to our coin, and we're going to add some logic to check if we've added enough coins, and then we can do something. We'll probably want to go to a new level. So I'm going to go ahead and add this as a branch statement, because we're checking if something is true or not. There we go. So what is it that we're checking is true? We're going to check if we've got enough. So if our current score is greater than a certain value. So I'm going to drag out our current score here and say, is it greater than or equal to an integer? In this case, the integer that it needs to be greater than or equal to will be 10. So if it's equal to 10 or greater than 10, I don't know how that could possibly happen, but whatever. If it's equal to 10, then we're going to do something. In this case, we're going to load the level. So we're going to open level, and the level that we open we haven't made yet. It will be the win screen. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly make a level for our win screen. So I'm going to go back to my levels, which are in this folder in here. I should probably make a different folder for them, but that's fine. I'll make a level. It'll be win screen. Let's go ahead and make a widget in our menu stuff for the win screen. Let's go ahead, user interface widget. Win screen, you know the drill. At this point, we've got our text, which will show up, which will say, you know, you win. And we'll probably want to display the score and the high score, but for now, I'm just setting it up. So we'll make this a little bigger. We'll lock it to the middle. I'm going to have a look at some nice visual stuff for at the end, maybe in a later part of the tutorial. But for now, we've just got you win. That's fine. We'll change this in the future. We just have to, in our blueprints for the win screen level, we're going to open this up. We're going to have on begin play, we're going to create that widget, which will be the win screen. And we will go ahead and add it to the viewport as well. Add to viewport. There it is there. We of course have to connect this up, so we add to the viewport the widget we made. What else do we need to do? There's just one other thing we need to do on our world settings. Change the override to our good old menu mode that we made earlier, and that way the cursor will be retained on screen, for example. Now that we've done all that, we can go back to our coin blueprint, and where we have our open level, we're going to type in win screen, or the name of whatever it was that you made. Win screen. And now if we've collected enough, we should then win the game. Let's go ahead and run the game and see if we can do it. Oops, well, we need to run it from the main level rather than just immediately win. Let's go back to my maps, go to the main level. Yep, always save selected, and we're going to collect all these coins. In the future, I'll probably reduce the number of coins we need to collect just for testing purposes. As you'll see, it takes quite a long time for us to collect all 10 of these coins, as it should, because we're actually making a level here. So we've got 7, 8, 9. Now we've got the key. We can finally make our way back with our bizarre character. Looks a bit sort of like a worm man with a mustache. I'm not sure. There we go. And now we get to the win screen. Perfect. Let's go ahead and add a high score, because we're going to want to display the score that we have, which is going to be how long it took us to get to the end of the level. But the problem with having this, we could have our score in our manager, right? But we're moving between levels. We need some sort of way of retaining a number or value between levels, so that when we go to the win screen, we can have the number that we had before in the previous level. And we're going to do that with a special kind of blueprint called a game instance, which will be persistent between our levels. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my content here, and I'm going to go ahead and right click blueprint class and make an actor. Oh no, sorry, not make an actor. That's the whole point. We're going to make a game instance, which is a special kind of thing I'm going to find only by searching for it. So game instance. So we're going to make a new blueprint of this game instance, and we'll call it, high score manager. Now this high score manager, we're going to have to set to be used in our project settings. So if I go to project settings, I can now, here's a message log, let's get rid of that. Here's the project settings. We're going to go to maps and mode under project. And under maps and mode, there is a default game instance that's being used, which doesn't really have anything in it. We're going to use our high score manager instead. Now, what is the high score manager going to do? Well, all it's going to do for us really here at the moment is contain a variable, which we will call high score. So I'm going to do a float, and we'll call this high score time. So whenever we win the game, we're going to set, before we open this level, the value of our high score. So we're going to go ahead and get instance. So we can get the game instance, I think it is, get game instance from anywhere, and this will get the game instance that was going to be persistent to all the different levels. And once we've got that, we can then grab that value. So we can get, what was it that we called it? I need to check my variable here. High score timer. Oh, let's make it visible as well. So compile that, go back to my coin high score timer. So we're going to get high score. Oh yes, before we can get it, we actually have to cast it. We have to turn it into the high score manager. So first we're going to cast to high score manager. And now that it is a high score manager, as a high score manager, we'll be able to get that variable, which will be the high score time. So if we succeed in casting, we are then going to open the level. So let's go ahead and connect these up so that this happens before we open the level. And we're going to, with that high score, let's see, what are we going to do? Oh yes, we're going to set it. So we don't actually want to get it, we want to set it. So we're going to set high score. Where is high score? Set high score manager. So let's make sure this actually happens. Click, click. And what are we going to set it to? Well, we're going to set it to our current score. No, that's the number of coins we've collected. We're going to set it to the timer. We've already got here the manager, so we can go ahead and drag this all the way out. Oops. And get the timer. So we can get current timer. And we'll use this current timer as the value for the high score that we then set. With this all set up, we're setting the high score to the instance, which will be something that we can pull into our win screen. So I'm going to pull out my text, and we're going to say, high score in this text. High score. Well done. And we're going to duplicate this text box so that we can have a text box that contains within it the high score. We better anchor these to the center as well, since that's where they sort of are physically. So the high score could be something like 0, or it could be something else. So we'll set this to 0 just so we can see what it looks like. Oh, I'm setting it to the bracket by mistake. Let's try that again. There we go. And we'll set anchor it to the center, and we will bind the content just as we were before with the others. But this time, instead of getting the manager blueprint that we made, we're going to get the instance. So we're going to go ahead and just do get instance. Oh, that's not really something we do here, so we'll just right click anywhere and get instance. Does that make sense? Get game instance. There we go. And now that we've got this, we're going to have to do the same thing we did in our coin, which was cast it to the high score manager to treat it as if it's a high score manager, which it will be. So cast a high score manager, and once we've done that, we can now go ahead and grab the score, which is the high score, get high score time, and we can use that high score time as the value to then display. We just have to make sure that this actually happens by connecting it like that. So now if we compile this, we save everything, and we go ahead and play the game. It would take a while for us to test this, as I was saying before, so I'm going to go ahead and change the number on our coin blueprint of objects that are required. We're just going to change this to 2. Oh, not 21, to 2. Thank you very much. So we only need 2 coins to win, just for the purposes of testing. So there's our first coin, and there's our second coin. And now I win, and we've got our high score of 4.769. Woohoo! Except it's not really a high score, is it? Because it's just showing us the value that we have already got. We want to be able to play the game multiple times and then take whatever the best score is as our high score, and also maybe display the current score. So instead, I'm going to go ahead and display this high score time. We're going to set this high score time to the new high score time only if it's greater. So before we do any of this stuff, we're going to have another true false to check, should this even happen? Should we override the value of our high score? So if it's false, we're just going to go straight to opening the level because we don't have a new better high score. If it's true, we're going to go ahead and set the high score. So what is it we're checking? We're checking if the high score is bigger than. So we are going to have to cast this anyway. So let's put the branch on the other side, because regardless of whether it's the high score is better or not, we're going to have to get it to compare the score. So it's actually just here that we're going to do our branch. So we're going to do our branch here. Let's go ahead and use the high score to get our high score. So get high score time. Here it is here. And we're going to turn this into a bool by saying, is it greater than something? Or rather, in this case, because this is the high score that already exists, is it less than something? So is this float less than, and here it is, our current time, the new one? Because if it is less than the current time, then that means that our time is greater. Is that good or bad? We need to make sure we do this the right way around. Let me work it out. So we only want to set the high score to a new high score if the new high score is a lower number, because a lower number is better, because the whole point is we're trying to do this in as short a time as possible. So actually we want to check if this is greater than the float, because if it's greater than it, then we're going to replace it. So then we're going to drag this red into this condition for true, which means we are going to set the value. So we'll drag this out here. And now in our horrible spaghetti code, we're basically saying if it's true that the high score, the new high score here is greater than, is less than the new high score, then we are going to do it. Otherwise, we're going to set the value. Anyway, let's try this and see if it works. Either way, we're going to open the level. So this one is going to go sort of by the way of setting the high score to the open level. This one's going to go straight there. Let's go ahead and run this code and see. We might have to switch it. We've maybe got it the wrong way around. Oops, let's not die. So here's my 2 score. My high score is 0, but really, if the high score starts at 0, that's the best score you could possibly get, isn't it? So we're going to have to make sure the high score starts at a really high number so that it does automatically get replaced. How do we do that? Well, we can set the default starting timer value of it here. So in our score manager, so the no, not in the score manager, in the instance. Where's that? High score manager instance. Here it is. So we'll set the default value of it to a very, very high number. That way, whatever time we get the first time we play the game, that will be the new high score, because it will be better than that really high number. So there we go. There's our high score, 3.511, because that's a better score than we got, which was a really, really high number. We don't actually have a way, though, of replaying the game. So I'm going to just quickly add that to the widget so that we can properly test replaying and trying to get a better score. Let's go back to my win screen and let's add another button. Go to the designer. We'll add another button to replay. We'll add an image, not an image, text to it. So we're going to say this text as replay. We'll set the text to be a darker contrast. We'll rename this button for clarity, a replay button. And we will go ahead and go to scroll all the way down to our on-click for this button, which we will then use to open a level. And we'll just open the main level again. I have to make sure I spell it correctly, because we're just going to replay that level. But now we should have the new high score saved. So I'm going to sort of dilly-dally around a little bit here so that our timer goes up a little. We're going to then win the game. Boop, there we go. So our high score is 7 seconds. Let's see if we can do a better job. There we go. Our new high score is 3.161. And now if we do a worse job, so if we dilly-dally again, our timer wasn't better, so it's still just 3.16. There we go. We've got our high score. So I'm going to go ahead and put an X on this one. We've also made a timer, so I'm going to put an X on the timer. Is there anything else we've done so far? No, I think that's all from this section. In the next tutorial, we'll be looking at some of these elements that we have got left to cross out.